Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host, Tashana, the hostess with the mostest. Let's get into this. So, no, we are not going to be going over the periodic table. However, the creator had me look into something. It's crazy. I was sitting here, realized I didn't have any bleach, right? And I've used, vinegar before to clean up. And I've even heard that it was used, in spiritual rituals, like spiritual baths, to ward off evil, to detect negative energy in your home, and it actually, wards off bad luck. And it's also for cleansing and protection, right? They even have these packaged vinegar spiritual cleansers. One of the popular ones is called 7 Spirit Vinegar, right? So obviously this is not a secret. So I wanted to do a little bit of research, right? Into vinegar, because he's like, what is vinegar? And I was curious because I wanted to know if it would be in line with the periodic table. I was curious to see if it was one of the elements, and if we could just cover it. I know it's not a transition metal because that's what we're covering right now. If you're, new, or if this is your first time listening, we're in the middle of covering transition metals. But every now and again, the creator will have us go into something else. Again, we know that it's used, several different ways. People use it for different things. But since the 17th century, from China all the way to Greece and a few other places, vinegar has been used to cleanse wounds. It's been used to, again, ward off evil and in exercises that involve spiritual rituals and even consecrations, right? Now, I started digging and then I came across this information saying that vinegar is in holy water. I had no idea. If you guys knew that, please let me know. It is comprised of salt, vinegar, baking soda, and water, right? So I thought that was interesting. And it's not even the same as like the water used for baptism, Easter water, or like regular consecration water, right? It's not to be drank and you can't wash up with it. And of course, it has to be blessed by someone who is a part of the clergy, and it has to come from a purified location, preferably the church or somewhere that has been blessed, or a land that is considered to be sacred. So on the science side, it is actually a byproduct. It's called, or another name for it is vinum acetum. Vinum being a Latin word defined as wine. So there's this 2-step fermentation process where something is fermented, usually a grain, right? And you get yeast with the sugar. It turns into alcohol, and then it gets exposed to oxygen, and then acetic bacteria is formed, and then this is where we get vinegar from. Now, it's also used to pickle food. We know that which of course used to preserve the shelf life of food by killing off the bacteria that would otherwise form. It is also in grape juice, typical table grape juice. Now, there are different types, right? We have white wine, which is usually coming from a grain, as discussed. Balsamic is the fermentation process from grapes. Then we have rice vinegar, which is obviously from rice. Malt, which is the fermentation process of unmalted beer. Then we have apple cider vinegar, which is obviously from apples. And then wine vinegar. And then flavored vinegar, which is fruit infused. Okay. It's also said to be good for animals, particularly dogs, right? Now, this is where it started getting interesting because we know that it's used as an antibacterial balm for wounds, right? Then I saw something that said it's good for your cough, okay? And it's even still used today, obviously, right? People use it for, again, holy water, and then it's used in some operation rooms, depending on the type of operation. Now, what I started to find more interesting is that a lot of this vinegar conversation started to come up in the religious realm, okay? Here on Inappropriate Radio, we separate spirituality from religion, right? And then this whole conversation of consecration and sanctification and purification, even within Judaism, because obviously this whole consecration talk is, especially with the clergy, that's more so like of the Roman thing. But then it even comes up in Christianity and Judaism. As far as consecration and sanctification. Now, of course, there's a distinction between consecration. This is defined as a transfer of a personal thing, more of a movement to like a sacred sphere for special purposes. Now, I would just say, if you look at the definition, this can be used in a different way, depending on your intentions, if you will. Different groups have different meanings, and I'll just leave it there, okay? Now, when I started looking into what it does for the body, vinegar is actually said to prevent over-oxidation of your cells, and is said to prevent cancer. So now I see why everybody's drinking apple cider vinegar, because it's more nutritional and it'll be more beneficial to consume for your body. You don't want to consume more than 3 to 4 tablespoons a day, as it can, well, as we know, too much of anything is not good, right? But you don't want to overdo it because it'll start to throw off your pH balance, and it can actually erode the enamel in your teeth. Speaking of pH balance, right, it is highly acidic, falling anywhere in between 2.2 and 3.3, with pure vinegar having a pH balance of 2.5 in the same region as lemons. Now, again, the same talk of consecration kept coming up the more I started to do research. And then I started looking at, even in Islam, where the consecration is known for, or as a tamid or a taqdis, right? This is basically the same thing as a consecration. Now, when I started doing the research into why it was used in spiritual practices, nothing really seemed to come up. It just gave a lot of information on consecrations being used in China, Greece, right? Mainly in Europe. Nothing in the Africa region, nothing really in the Caribbean, which I found to be very interesting. But yeah, nothing that was leaning on a why. A lot of hows, a lot of different ways and uses, right? As to why nothing really came up. A lot of the practices that are spiritually related, as far as vinegar is concerned, it was also tied to medicinal situations. Or, like I said, not even just the consecration, but the exorcism. And I really didn't have a lot of information. Here we like to tie in the spirituality and just have proof, because we have to have things that make sense. We can't just ramble on, right, about things that don't have a physical basis. It has to make a connection to the spiritual world and to our bodies. So I was just surprised to see this whole holy water concoction. Now, as far as the process with the fermentation, there are different types of vinegar, and we're not going to be using apple cider vinegar, right? Obviously, for spiritual rituals, this would mainly be white. And this would come from like rice or potatoes, something that gives us starch, right? The same process that is used to create alcohol. Now, before we go, I did want to, I think we said that it was a byproduct, right? Yeah, obviously. I did want to have this conversation of blessing things. And obviously this is off topic. It can tie into vinegar because it's used to, right, do all these spiritual things. But the more you start to ascend spiritually, you have to be careful of the information that comes to you, because we know that the darker side is attracted to the light, right? And we know that there's this possibility of these spiritual attacks happening around the clock. So you want to be conscientious of the information, even if it appears to be confirming what you consider to be something that is harmful, right? People pry and spy and attack in many different ways, whether it be your dreams, whether it be coming in through music, anything, right? These messages start to get misconstrued and start to fall in line with the more negative aspect of how you are perceiving. So it's very important to keep your vibrations high and look for your information to come from the creator. Of course, we're not going to be just ignoring signs, right? If something is consistent, we can't really negate it. But I'm speaking in terms of the warfare, how the information is coming. Even the channels that you go about seeking information, you have to be careful, because people who are attacking you, they send things your way, right? And sometimes things can be left down for you to pick up purposely, to misconstrue things and taint your perspective and your perception. So you have to be careful of how you take things in. All right, just a little food for thought. I do hope you guys enjoyed your weekend. I slept a lot purposely. I wanted to sleep some of my little under the weather down, right, just so I can have some energy for the new week. But I do love y'all, and I hope y'all have been praying and fasting and drinking y'all water, eating y'all fruit and vegetables, and sipping on your own tea. Why? Because it is free. We are going to be doing the ammunition making class soon. I will give you guys the information about the date and the location soon. All right. Love y'all.